Let's move on now, because Chancellor Jeremy Hunt is expected to tighten welfare rules in his autumn statement tomorrow. The aim is to tackle what Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is calling a national scandal. He's hoping that cutting benefits by £4,680 a year from 2025 will see around 2 million people re-enter the workforce. But Labour say this is the part of the Conservatives trying to wipe their hands with the last 13 years of Tory government. Well, joining us now is our political editor, Chris Hope. So, Chris, a lot of people are looking for tax cuts, but something that certainly gets GB News viewers very intrigued is the idea of clamping down on benefits, on Sick Note Britain. What's the latest?
That's right. Everyone knows that the Treasury likes to see around 250,000 people arriving here as a net number of migrants, and we'll see more figures out from that, much more than that, on Thursday. And that's because Britain has a problem with not finding enough workers. We know, don't we, if you go to a pub or restaurant, there's often the problem nowadays with finding people to work. Well, this idea is trying to get more people off the benefit system and into work. The idea is the work from home epidemic we've seen since the COVID pandemic can be used to help the government get those back to work who can work, but let them do it from home. That's the thinking anyway. The idea is if you don't do it, you will lose benefits you already have. If you are on benefits such as bus passes, it could cost as much as nearly £5,000 a year in lost perks for those who are stuck at home and on benefits and maybe can work according to the government. That's the idea, and we think that's going to be in tomorrow's autumn statement from the Chancellor just behind me. Not all Tory MPs are happy. Stephen McPartland, on the left of the Tory party, he's already said he's concerned about this. You can't be too much of a stick. You want to encourage people, not punish them because they can't work. Many people, of course, don't want to be on benefits, don't want to be at home, but have to be because of legitimate issues they have, whether it's mental health or physical issues. Behind me, we had in number 10 here in Downing Street all day, we've had a series of cabinet ministers arriving. Michael Gove's been in and out. Michelle Donlan, she's the Science Secretary. Michael Gove, of course, levelling up. And David Cameron earlier, in and out all day. But behind us, we've got Jeremy Hunt is doing prep ahead of a big day for him tomorrow. His first big, or his second big autumn statement, but the first one where he can actually put his own imprint on the policies. So we'll see what's coming next. We think there'll be some measures to cut taxes for businesses and maybe try and do some individual tax cuts, maybe on national insurance.
Chris, in terms of the benefits position, are we expecting any resistance from the Labour Party? I mean, they are, after all, called the party of the benefits classes. Or do you think they'll vote this through, let the Tories own it and change it later?
I bet my hat on the fact Labour would not vote this through, and the Tory government, of course, will see this as a further way of differentiating themselves from the Labour Party and showing how they are willing. They're on this. Tories would say they're on the side of the strivers, on those who want to get back to work, and Labour are instead happy to see people sit on benefits and take money paid for from other people's taxes. That's that's the dividing line, and a lot of the policies we're seeing tomorrow into next year are all about trying to create a dividing line between the Tory party and Labour. So trust the Tories, don't mess it up is the message, don't risk all with Labour. Of course, Labour will refute that and say the Tories are a tired government, give it time for our chance.
But, Chris, the facts are stark. A record 2.6 million Brits on long-term sickness benefits, and that's rocketed since lockdowns. Young people today are twice as likely to be claiming disability benefits as opposed to 20 years ago. And a great many people get in touch with us here at GB News saying they're sick of this. They think it pays better to not work now than it pays to be in work. So certainly with the Conservative voters, Chris, this should land well.
Well, exactly right. That's why they're putting themselves on the side, as they would see, on the strivers, on those who want to get to work, who want to get out. There will be pushback from Labour, from charities concerned about putting needless pressure on those who can't work. But yeah, the benefits bill is spiralling. It can't go on forever. It must be tackled, and it is an attempt by a Tory government to do so. And the Tories would say, we're trying to bear down on this big bill. What would Labour do?
Would any of this make any difference, do you think, Chris? There's a new opinion poll out today. It makes grim reading for Rishi Sunak and his team. They're a record low opinion poll since March. So sacking Suella Braverman, reshuffling the cabinet, the Rwanda disaster, bringing in David Cameron from the dead. It's had the opposite effect to they'd wish.
Yeah, it's not working. I mean, the Tory party is still 20 points behind or so, and they haven't been able to lift themselves out of those doldrums. As you say, Martin, they have got inflation down. Arguably, that's been supported by a fall in international energy prices. But despite that, it is a win for the Tory government. That's what Mr. Sunak said he'd do back in January. But otherwise, there's been a succession of difficult news for the party. You've got these repeated by-election defeats going through the summer, and then you've got this appointment of David Cameron as Foreign Secretary. You know, if he's the answer, what's the question? How will he help you win more votes in by-elections or elections? That's the question I'm always asking, and there's no answer there. So I think they want to try and show the kind of Tory Thatcherite core that we know that Mr. Sunak and Jeremy Hunt, the Chancellor, behind me in his office, say they follow. The idea being they've controlled inflation as Thatcher did back in the early 80s, and now it's time for trying to give targeted tax cuts but not risk inflation. That's the thinking behind it, but they need to get this working soon. There's no point in having long-term plans when you've got to win an election next year.
OK, Chris Hope, live from Downing Street. Thank you very much. I wonder what Maggie Thatcher would think of this thought. I reckon she'd say, get on your bike. That's just me.